probably have seen documents and heard people talking about the Pontifical Council for Social Communications. But sometimes it's hard to know what it is and what we're supposed to do. I always begin by saying what we are not. We are not the Vatican's press office. And as you know, there is a press office with Father Lombardi which does the main dealing with the media, the answering of questions, the preparation of information, and the back and forth in preparation for things like the Pope's visit to Germany, working with the media. So media relations, public relations, handled by the press office, not by us. We are not either a media organisation. In the Vatican there is a newspaper, there is a radio, television station, increasingly an internet presence, but we're not responsible for the operations of that. What our council is supposed to do, above all else, is to promote the importance of communications at the abstract and theoretical level, but that is important. Promote the importance of communication for the life of the Church. And we do that in a number of ways. The first thing I often think is, very often within the Church, communications does not seem as important as canon law, or as theology, or as other work, pastoral ministry. But maybe that is because communication is so important, we don't think about it. Somebody once said, if you asked a fish to describe its environment, the last thing it would mention is water. If you ask the Church to describe its environment, we forget to talk about communication because it's so central to everything we do. We exist as a Church to communicate, to make known the message of Christ. That is the fundamental reason why the Church exists. The Church exists as a community, and as a community it cannot function unless there is good communication. It is communication that builds, as we know, a family. It's communication that builds a community, builds a church. So communication, as far as we're concerned, is absolutely essential for the life of the Church. And what we try to do is promote that by emphasising that every chance we get. And we're reminding bishops that among their responsibilities as people who are responsible for the pastoral care of the community is to think about communication. How do you communicate with the world out there? How do you make known who we are and the message we want to proclaim? And then how do we communicate among ourselves to ensure as a community we are living up to that message? In the last number of years, we've decided, what do we have? I've said to you, we're not really there to, our work in the Vatican is important, but we don't run the press office, we don't run these different media. Recently we have one new project. You may have heard about news.va. What it is we have decided, if you wanted to get news from the Vatican, if you were a journalist or if you were a person who was interested in knowing what's happening in the Vatican, the website of the official Vatican website is good, but it's very hard to find things. It's not easy. The newspaper has its own website, the radio has a website, but it is difficult to find material. So we put together a new web portal called www.news.va. It's in English, Italian and Spanish. And what we try and do is we say, news.va is not making any new news, it's an aggregator. It's taking together all the most important news from the radio, the most important news from the newspaper, the press office, Fides, the missionary agency, and we try and integrate that so that somebody who wants to know what's happening in Rome and the Vatican can go press one button, click onto one site and find the material. We have also tried to create something that is multimedia. There is video material, there is audio material, and we have tried to make it attractive with pictures and easy to find. And I think that we have done. So far, our mistake may have been to launch it. We launched it in July, at the end of June. But then in July and August there is no news in the Vatican because everybody goes on holidays. So we had this beautiful site where we were trying to find news to put on it. We had the World Youth Day, thankfully, now we had the German visit. So we're really building it again with news content. And we also wanted to, and we'll come back to this, because we wanted to ensure that the new portal reflects new media. And by that, anything that is on that website is instantly, you can share it because it's linked into Facebook automatically. You can also tweet. And to launch the website, we got the Pope to send his first ever tweet. I'm not sure how much he understood what he was doing, but he had his iPad and he clicked and he sent the first tweet. And I want to come back to that in a moment, why symbolically that was important. In the council, we are 20 people in Rome in our council, and we also have lots of jobs we have to do that take some of our staff up. They're busy. We do the accreditation of audiovisual media. We also run the Vatican's film archive, and we also have the people who run a network of communications in Latin America. So when you break that down, the number of us to follow communications in the world, it's about 6 or 7 people. But what we realized is, if we want to say, how does the church communicate? And again, let's remember, the church communicates not just through media, not just through newspapers and television and radio, but we communicate much more effectively by the way we live our lives, by what people in the community see of us, how we serve, how we live. But we also need to have a formal presentation, a media presence, and that is I always try and say communications is more than media and more than technology, but we're specializing in media and technology. We don't have much in Rome, but globally, what I have discovered in the last 3 years traveling is the church has an extraordinary network of communications media. We had a congress for newspapers, Catholic print media, about 1.5 years ago. And it ranges from Bayard Press, which is a French publishing house that employs over 2,000 people globally. And that is a Catholic media enterprise. And it goes from there to 2 people I remember in particular. One, a religious sister in Pakistan, who is trying to produce a small little newsletter at great risk and danger to herself. And then she also said, if I'm going to communicate with the Word, I have to teach literacy, because our Catholic community is not very educated in certain parts of Pakistan. I also think of people in Cuba, where there's a very strong and relatively oppressive government, oppressive of Catholics. It's changing now, thankfully, but traditionally quite strong in controlling. They're the Catholics who work in media, again, very limited resources and a difficult environment in which to work. But we have radio stations in parts of the world, we have TV stations, we have huge presence now in the internet, where we have so many people trying new things and trying to understand new communication.